let me first ask you about the deal. Yesterday at this time, we were saying, a lot of it has been focused on that percent increase over
Yeah.
3 years. And it was the city 3%, pretty much 3% over 3 years, and the union saying 5% over 3 years. So it seemed like 4% would have been the natural compromise. And we're hearing 3% over 3 years. What do you make of the deal?
Mhm. I think that overall it's a good deal. It's something that in today's political climate, there is no money coming from Harrisburg and no money certainly coming from Washington, D.C. Previous union contract negotiations often leveraged and expected to have some extra funding coming from those sources, and it's just not available right now.
Does it feel like a loss, though, when you talk about, and I know some of it is just natural negotiating and strategy, but when you look at this, the union originally said they wanted 8%, and the city always said 3%, and we landed at 3%.
Mhm,
Doesn't that look like a loss?
mhm. Anytime that negotiations go on, no one gets everything that they want. So I think that it's something that right now the individual members need to determine whether or not they feel this is a loss or not. They will be the ones to determine whether or not to ratify the contract. But I think that listening to the mayor's press conference just now, that she certainly is taking this as a win for her administration.
Well, and you lead into my next set of questions about ratifying
Yeah.
the deal. What exactly does that mean? I know members have to vote. Given your expertise, what does that typically look like? Is that something they do in person? And then do they need a majority vote to ratify? What does that typically look like?
Well, it's a very democratic process, and it can also be a very messy process. It's a process that is usually done traditionally in person at a large arena or some setting where all the members can come in, and they actually have a chance to discuss and debate with the executive council and the union's president and other officers to hear about what it is that is being offered. And usually it's the responsibility of the union officers to explain to the members why the deal should be accepted. And I think over the next few days, that's what I'm going to be listening to what is said.
So realistically, how long could it take to ratify this deal?
It should not take long. I mean, it's usually within a few days to a week. Sometimes it could take longer. A lot of it is logistics. I've been getting a place to actually have a meeting, a large meeting where you have 9,000 people. So that's something that needs to come into play. But I think in the meantime, union members will be debating and discussing whether or not this is a deal that they want to accept.
Which now leads to probably my final set of questioning here. 4 o'clock in the morning, these negotiations wrapped up. Of course, we had a camera there. Many journalists were there. The president, Greg Boulware, said right to the media that he is not happy with the outcome of this deal. What do you make of that?
Mhm. Well, he's being very frank about his own feelings, and I think his sense of disappointment that many of the members had. I want to say one thing that compared to the 1986 strike, this was a very solid strike in terms of union support. There was no one that I'm aware of that crossed that picket line. And it's something that in the days to come, the union leadership will be talking to the members and explaining why they think this was the right move at this time.
Back to the president's initial messaging. Of course, we're going to track him down today, and we'll be able to ask him directly. But as an outsider, when you hear the president of your union express this disappointment, um, is that a strategy? What message does that send? What tone are we setting going into the ratification
Mhm.
process?
Yeah. Yeah, it's something that in listening to the president's statement, one of the things I notice about him throughout this whole strike is that he seems to be a very articulate spokesperson. He's able to really connect with members and also to the public. And I think his frank assessment is his own disappointment and his understanding that he needs to now go back to the members. And one of the things to keep in mind is that no war is won in one battle. And the history of the labor movement is one of ongoing struggle. And I think in the years to come, if the political climate can change a little bit, there might be another time when the city workers might gain more of what they want. But it is a gradual process over time.
Okay, let me look at my questions here. You mentioned the history of these negotiations. I've kind of familiarized myself a little bit with that. But, it seems like this negotiation was not just about this moment in time. It was kind of years and decades of Philadelphia being in so much debt that
Yeah.
there really was no wiggle room. So unions continued, or at least this specific union seemed to get pushed to the side. I mean, is that
Mhm.
kind of what brought us to this moment today?
Mhm. I think if you look at the history of the union over the last 25 years, there was a lot of patience on the union's part, understanding what the city's finances were. There were some years where there were no wage increases, and the contract was just extended into to other years. And I think that the moment right now is that a lot of citizens understand that city workers are underpaid, and the mayor did put on the table over the past, including last year, some real wage increases that have not been seen in over a generation. So there is some movement here, and I don't think those wage increases would have happened without the union being there in the background.
Okay, we're almost done here, Francis. Thank you so much. Your feeling on whether or not the union is going to go for it. Again, we're looking at what's on the table. We're listening to President Boulware's messaging. Do you think that this gets ratified?
Mhm. It's an open question. It's something that it's unusual for contracts to not be accepted by their membership after union leaders explain to them the conditions and terms. But I'm not able to predict what they're going to say. I know from looking at social media that there seems to be some disagreement about whether or not they should ratify this agreement right now.
Another question, again, just kind of
Mhm.
your opinion here. We know what the salaries are. We've done, stories about whether or not, that can cover the price of living, by the figures that we gathered here at CBS News Philadelphia. No, the salaries does not enable someone to live in the city of Philadelphia based on some of those price of living estimates. Is it possible that union workers can't afford to be on strike anymore?
Mhm. Well, one of the reasons I think this strike was embraced by many in the public is that the conditions that the city workers face are ones that are faced by thousands of people across the city. And one possible way to think about this is that, what role do unions play in our economy and in our society? And I don't think that people are going to walk away from the union and seeing it as a vehicle of possible change. The only thing to keep in mind is that it is a long term process often over years. If you look at the history of this union going back to 1938, it's indisputable that real benefits have come over time, and it's because of collective action. And so I think that looking ahead, this will continue to be an institution that continues to do that job.
Thank you so much, Professor Ryan. Is there anything else that I didn't touch on that you see as important here at this moment?
No, I think that covers it. I mean, I think a lot of us are just waiting to hear the details of what happened. I mean, there's a lot of drama involved in any negotiation sessions. And the city negotiators and the Council 33 negotiators are relatively new to the public, record, and we're getting to know who these people are. And it's something that, again, the real people who are deciding this right now are the actual rank and file members of District Council 33, who will decide with their votes whether or not they're going to accept this deal.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Okay. In the meantime, everybody's got to get back to work as soon as possible. That's what they say.
Really?
Do you think that in negotiations, are you surprised there wasn't more non-salary factors on the table? And again, we weren't inside those rooms,
Yeah.
but
No, I'm not that surprised. I mean, it's the real issues in the past that have come up have to do with issues of privatization and issues of job security. They're not on the table right now. One of the things that were on the table had to do with the residential requirement, and police and fire are able to move outside the city. The other city workers are not, and I'm not surprised that that did not change. And I don't know how hard that was pressed, But it really did come down to wages. This particular strike, that was the main focal point.
Thank you so much for your insight.